Welcome to the Artist Sessions. I'm Janice Cotter, the Gallery Manager at PoMoArts. So glad you could join us on this sunny Thursday evening. We have 4 artists with us this evening from Igniting Hope on our artist panel. Igniting Hope is an exhibition with a focus on climate change and the future of our rapidly changing planet. Sorry. Tonight, we'll have a chance to hear more about the work these artists have been doing, as well as touching on topics that are affecting us all. And we'll take some time later to scroll through the works of all 23 artists in the digital exhibition that's on our website. To introduce you to each artist, I'm going to share their profile page. That's on our PoMoArts website. First up is Bridget Catchpole. Bridget creates sculptural jewelry for your body and walls. She is passionate about using unusual treasures from the ocean that she's collected from around the world to create her pieces. Monique Martin creates bodies of work rather than individual pieces. And focuses on specific concepts she undertakes. She undertakes extensive research prior to creating her work, often incorporating historically significant symbols and images to express her ideas. Shannon Harvey has been making work in response to climate change for more than 10 years. She's driven to engage with people about issues that we all grapple with, and to do it through beauty, compassion, and sometimes humor. Click. Emily Nunez looks at relationships women have with nature and our landscapes. They have stories that are connected and intertwined with our natural world. Her paintings tell these stories, her own, her family's, and from things she's read. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of our Igniting Hope exhibition and this discussion panel. I think we'll get you to all take your mute off now so that you can all chat as I ask you questions. Just to start, this question wasn't actually on the list, so sorry about that, but this is a thought that you've all touched on in your work. And Monique, your words express this thought quite well. It's every action in life, every interaction produces an energy that vibrates within the world and connects humans to each other and to the environment. And so I think with this first question, I'm going to start with Monique. And so Monique, how do you express that thought in your artwork?
That's a very interesting question you ask. When we first went into isolation, I took that idea and I made it into a piece of work by creating this silk screen, and it's called Pebble in a Pond. And I believe every time we make a decision, it's like throwing a pebble in a pond and it creates a ripple. And those ripples cross into other people's lives that we don't even know. And there's that rippling interaction that just continues. And it's an undercurrent that continues and continues. So during COVID, for every day that we were in complete isolation, I put one color on this silk screen. And I only made 12 of them to represent 1 year in the world of our planet. And it was very kind of therapeutic. but it also talks about our interconnectedness. It's huge. Being interconnected is really everything. Humans are connected to each other. We're learning that really well through COVID when we do the contact tracing when somebody gets COVID, how interconnected we are and how important it is that each decision we make, we think carefully. And that crosses over into the environment. My piece with the pop bottles, which isn't the one that's up there, the pieces with the pop bottles, every time we use a plastic bottle and discard it, we're creating a ripple in the pond of the environment that can't be changed. And I think as policymakers in government, we have to look at when a new object comes into the world, we have to make that designer decide how that object is going to end so that the ripple and the interreactions and actions of it don't affect everyone.
Thank you. Shannon, you expressed that thought in your work as well, talking about the connections and the natural world. Do you want to relate that back to your work? Shannon? You can still hear me, correct? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Shannon, can you hear me? No? Okay, so Bridget, we'll move on to you then. Can you talk a little bit about the connections and interactions with your work and the natural world, what you're creating, if that relates to your work?
So I guess the first thing that I started doing that reminds me of that is this piece. I'll just grab it. So one of the first things I started doing once lockdown happened was creating, sort of refabricating a buoy from all these broken fragments of a buoy that I've collected along the Pacific coast, both on our Pacific coast, but also in Hawaii. So I was recently there in February and I collected a ton of plastic. And so this was very much about these individuals that are then connected to create a whole. So it's quite in keeping with what you're talking about. I do find that a lot of my work has to do with connection, but it also talks about change and how small changes can have big impacts. So for instance, a million years ago, I started following, it's called Take 3 for the Sea. And it's basically anytime you're at the beach or by a body of water or anywhere, you pick up pieces of garbage and you get them out of the environment. And so it was very much about that. And if everybody were to just start collecting and getting rid of it in a more confined way, that would be the impact that can make. And it's a small thing, and that was about 15 years ago, but it really stuck in my head that how much impact just a few small changes can make. So.
Great, thanks. Emily, do you want to talk about the connections and interactions in your work?
Yeah, so my work is really about like how magical our landscape is and the world that we live in, and in turn what we should do to protect it. So the first thing I thought of when you're talking about that is the piece that I made for the poster. I didn't make it about this, but when COVID happened, it kind of was like this Mother Nature just like protecting what we have. And, you know, since we're all in quarantine, just kind of healing, you know, our land again. And it just shows directly like the effects that we have, you know, when we're, you know, so many people are out and the emissions. And so like when we're inside and not taking advantage of the land, you know, she's kind of healing it. So that's kind of like the first thing I thought of. But as in terms of like influencing, I think just having the conversations really do make a difference. So if you just think of Greta and like the influence she had over all the young people, it's just really amazing. So just like having the conversations about it, I think really do make a ripple effect. And even just like things that I learn, I'll share with my friends, and you know, then they'll make a difference in their life. I'll talk about this like later on, but like I'm vegan, and like I haven't influenced a ton of people to go vegan, but I've definitely influenced them into like cutting down. And so there's just like this ripple effect of just having a conversation that makes a difference for our planet.
Thanks, Emily. Now, Shannon, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, yes,
oh, great.
I am.
Oh, good. I'm
sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
You know what? These things happen.
Yeah.
So you've been able to hear us, I think.
No, I actually missed what everybody was saying after the intro. I'm sorry.
Okay, so basically it's going back to the thought. Now, you expressed it in your work where you're saying you seek to establish a connection between our everyday actions and the natural world upon which we depend.
Yeah.
You want to relate that back to your work a bit? The work,
yeah,
the pieces in the show, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, actually the couple of the pieces that were part of the series I did called Eating Animals or Animal Icons, but it was based on the idea of our relationship with the animals that we eat or depend on in some way. And that actually kind of launched a whole research project for me. So in order to do those pieces, I contacted a lot of people who are either farmers or work with animals in some way, on a very small scale. And I went and visited them, and I interviewed them, took photographs. I really wanted to sort of dive into that question of our relationship with animals and whether you choose to eat them or not eat them. We do, you know, depend on them in a lot of ways. So that was really interesting because it was about engaging with people that I wouldn't normally know. You know, for example, like the kids who were in that one print that's in the show called Pride Goat Farm. It was a whole family that ran that farm, and it was really interesting to kind of see up close what goes on a goat farm. So when I came time to do these pieces, and they really were a lot of them portraits of the people along with their animals that they work with. And then I showed them, it really sort of triggered a whole series of dialogues with people who looked at the work. And then we got to talking about what it means to eat animals. You know, I had a range of conversations from people who were vegans to people who, you know, ate a lot of meat all the time. And I think that that's really important for sort of figuring out where we stand on a lot of these issues, sort of having these discussions. And for me, it was important to highlight the work that people who are doing, where they're working in a really small scale way. They have a love for these animals and a respect. They honor their lives, but in some cases, they also kill them for food. So I think that's the paradox there is a really interesting one to kind of engage with people around.
Thank you. So I'm just going to go straight into question 2 with you. And that was, or what was question 1. And that was, do you focus on a specific climate change issue in your artwork or more than one?
Definitely more than one. Because I realized it's been like 15 years that I've been doing work around climate change or, you know, issues having to do with climate emergency. So depending on the issue that I'm interested in, I will kind of focus on that. Like I did a whole series of t-shirts where the designs were all about our use of fossil fuels. So it was called the Fossil Fuel series. Or, you know, the series that I did about eating animals, the Animal Icon series. or, you know, the mural that's in the exhibit, which is a message in a bottle. That was sort of a large piece that had to do with the pipeline, because I was reading tons of articles and books about oil extraction and sort of indigenous sovereignty. So it's definitely been a range of issues that it's continuing to compel me to make work, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Bridget, so do you focus on a specific issue? I know you do a lot of work involving the oceans. So are there any other areas you're focused on, or do you really want to make that your main concern?
Well, when I began creating jewelry, I was traditionally trained. Gemstones didn't really appeal. The mining and so many aspects of that world just didn't fit with me. And I was always looking to alternative materials. But it was when I watched, it must have been 2009-ish, I watched this program on CBC's Doc Zone called Fantastic Plastic. And it talked so much about just the sorting stations and what can and cannot be recycled, even so at that time, and things have changed, but still the overabundance of plastics. And I started doing this project called Mining Under the Kitchen Sink. So I was literally looking for materials that I could transform that I had used. And it was through that research, just researching plastics and single use and how to make changes there, that I started reading so much about the Pacific Vortex. And then it was in 2009. So it must have been 2004, the documentary. So in 2009, I went camping with my partner just to see would there be evidence of what I was reading about. Because there were, you know, people were saying that, yes, it's washing up ashore. And so we went, and it was shocking. So we went in April after the winter storms. And not only did we find, you know, heaps of plastics in all varying sizes, but we found microplastics. So a microplastic is anything that's 5 mil or smaller. And it looked like confetti at the uppermost point where the tide line is. And that started my journey into working with plastics that I collect along the shorelines. And so that has been going on for 10 years. And my partner and I made a commitment to go and collect every year. And sometimes I have an opportunity to collect on the other side of the Pacific, because due to, yeah, well, that's family. And so I tend to, I have a lot of materials. You can actually see, so all the buoys up there that are hanging on my ceiling are all collected along Tofino, along our coast, because even, so before I could just try to get everything before it even breaks down, because the more the waves crash against it, the more it's breaking up further and further. And so I'm just always trying to get everything I can away from there. And that's sort of, my whole studio is full of squirreled away sections of plastic. So all weightings become something better than they are.
Thanks, Bridget.
The long story short, the ocean is,
yes.
is my focus.
That's great. Thank you. I am going to ask Monique now. I know that you focus on a lot of different types of environmental-based artwork, but I wondered whether there was anything that was particularly near and dear to your heart. Any environmental focus that was near and dear to your heart.
I think my biggest focus is to make people question the environment when they see my work, to question their interaction with the environment. So I don't think I can pinpoint one thing that's special to me other than creating either an interaction or a reaction. So this piece is printed with used motor oil and ink, and it's on Moebius bands. And in an exhibition, I explain what the Moebius band is, but I'm gonna do a little demo because I can. This is a Moebius band. So what happens is I took a strip of paper, I gave it a half twist. What happens is this is a never ending cycle. I could take a pencil and draw a line all the way around this. I can also take a pair of scissors and prove to you this is a never ending line by cutting right down the middle. And what will happen is I will end up with one big long strip. Fascinating, right? So when people see this and they understand this in an exhibition and they see the fish moving around these ripples, it creates a visual impact that I hope they carry with them, that every time a drop of oil enters the environment, no matter how hard we try to clean it up, it's never gone. Small bits of that are at a microscopic level that enter into the food chain and never change. Then I have a second piece very similar, that's near and dear to my heart, I guess is your question, where I printed fish on a computer or a calculator ribbon. And when people come to the exhibition, they're encouraged to print on this and give me a number that they think each piece of grass is worth. Because when an oil spill is cleaned up, like it was in my province, they say, well, the oil spill is now clean. And if you actually look at the stats, it says at 82% or whatever, they call it clean. That's not clean. There's still oil in the environment. So there's blades of grass and little bugs that are being affected. So I ask the viewer to actually enter numbers into the functional calculator and tell me what they think one blade of grass is worth to them financially. We always talk about how much the oil spill was to clean up, but we don't actually talk about how we value each piece of grass, each seashell, each little fish, each frog. That's missing, I think, in the calculation. So I try to give people that opportunity to think that. And I think interacting with the artwork or creating artwork that is really mentally stimulating about shapes and objects makes people think more carefully about the environment. So that's my focus.
Thank you, Monique. So we are going to move on to Emily now and ask her what her focus is with the environment.
Yeah, so I don't focus on a specific climate change issue. Rather, I look at our relationship with the natural world in terms of stories, memories, and how we relate to our landscape and how it becomes a part of our identities. So by focusing on the importance of that relationship, we can look at the choices that we make that directly affect our planet. So my art focuses on the mystical and the magical parts of our landscape so that we understand how important it is to protect it.
Thank you, Emily. So the next question, I am going to ask Shannon to go first. So I'm just going to read a little bit to preface the the question. From when the shutdown started until now, people seem to have gone through various stages. Early in the pandemic, I heard of artists who were unable to work and were taking a break. But as time has gone by, we've been hearing about so many artists leading the way to create and share new works like the Robson Street murals or performing online or on their balconies. And their art has been one of the positive connections that spreads joy and keeps us connected and provides hope, which sort of ties in with what we are doing in this exhibition. So have you found that the pandemic has affected or temporarily interrupted your creation process? Shannon?
Yes, it has. I have an 8-year-old. So once the lockdown started and all the schools closed, she's been home. So I would say a lot of my energy has shifted towards kind of helping her navigate online learning and just sort of staying mentally and physically healthy. So there hasn't been so much time to be in the studio. We have been kind of finding other ways to be creative in the neighborhood. We started writing jokes out on the sidewalks using chalk. We did sort of like a display in our patio for people to see of artwork. So it's been challenging, yeah, because I really just haven't been able to go to the studio as I was previously, yeah.
Have you been able to resume doing work yet, or is that still on the back burner?
I'm slowly starting to have some more time. Sometimes my daughter has to come with me into the studio, which she's getting used to. So yeah, I'm sort of resuming working on some pieces that I had been working on for the past year. So I have been slowly starting to get back into it, which is good.
Okay. So now I'm going to switch and talk to Bridget about this same thing, whether you have been affected by this. Have you, I know you are in Parker Studios, have you been able to go to your studios right from the beginning, or were you kept out? Have you still been able to create work?
Yes. So right away, I was working straight the way through pretty much. Some days it was a day-to-day. The building remained open, but they closed it to general public. So it was hard for people who, for instance, there's a Westerly Shoes. She's a shoemaker. She makes custom shoes. So that was challenging for her. She needs somebody to come in order to make them. But I was able to come in and produce my work. However, it was obviously daunting, and it felt more like a day-to-day. Sometimes at the beginning, because I had so many shows line up. I was doing 10-hour days, 12-hour days, and it was really hard getting all of those emails coming in saying canceled, possibly postponed. So then it was sort of this like, whoa. So if there's no deadline, does one still make the work? And of course you do. But you know, there was, I was able to take a little bit of space for myself, I think. I went dark on the Instagram front. That's my only social media. And I went dark for about 3 weeks. I got to writing for a new series that I want to create. And so just really hunkered down and thought about all of that. And then, yeah, I've been in the studio and in the garden and just trying to be helpful. I live in a co-op, so just trying to be helpful to my fellow neighbors, and that's, yeah, and then here we are today.
Great. So now I am going to go to Monique and ask her the same question about whether you were able to work. And, you know, it's interesting because I know that you are quite prolific in the amount of work you can do. And you've shown us the piece that you were creating, the print every day. But I also know you had exhibitions coming up that you were creating work for. So were you able to keep working on them? How have you found the process?
The exhibitions I had coming up were in the box, pretty much ready to go. So they were canceled or postponed. But I have 2,000 of these dandelions that were part of their paper, part of an installation about resilience, perseverance, and strength, which is a symbol of the dandelion. So it took me about 15 seconds to decide that I was going to do an Instagram feed about this. So I created a paper dandelion a day project, and I put the dandelion in different locations of my house. and took photos of it and related it to strength, resilience, and perseverance through this whole thing. People really enjoyed it, and actually Galleries West just did a sneak preview of it. It was a great way to switch it around, because it was disappointing that I had these 2,000 dandelions, which take up a lot of space, which is an issue, take up a lot of space and didn't get to be exhibited. As well, I'm working on a series called Foundation of Gratefulness. So that's over here. And I can just show you these. I've been working on them for a while, but because I have always been in time poverty, because I teach at a fine arts school as well as make art, time has always been something I struggle with. So I had all this time, I just went crazy. It was so, I shouldn't say it, I feel a little bit guilty, but it was really nice to have time to really make art. So what I did, I had these objects where the bottom of the bowl or the vessel is as important as the top of the vessel. And on this one, for every flower on the vessel, it's about love. And it's about how the foundation of love has to be not just the people that love you, but the people that don't love you, because it's really important that you learn from the people that don't love you probably more than the people that do. So this is called a Foundation of Gratefulness, and I think there's 12 pieces in the series ready or close to ready. So for me, the time affluence was quite an exciting thing. I also write songs, and finished writing and pretty much arranging a song, which is interesting as well, because it's called The Mask, and it's about the mask we all wear in everyday life, not the one from COVID. Before COVID started, I had a mask about the mask we don't want to wear, the secret screams, but instead we give people a smile instead of a scream. And it's a song about that whole, how are you? Oh, I'm great, but inside you, oh, I'm not so great. So I wrote a song about that and had time to work on that with the other musicians. So I feel guilty, but this is the first time in my life I could move slowly. And so for me, it's a real awakening, I guess, to what possibly I've been missing, but at the same time, the value I put into being in a fine arts school and affecting those people, young people's lives, was also valuable. So I'm in this weird kind of in-between zone.
Thank you. It sounds like there's been a lot of silver linings for you, Monique. So we'll move on to Emily now. And Emily, have you found that you were affected? I know you do. You have your studio. I'm seeing posts of you always in your studio. So are you finding that you're still able to work at this time?
Yeah, so it's funny, my friends and family are kind of bugging me, because like literally nothing has changed for me, because first of all, I'm like a huge hermit. And so I just like, I feel really lucky to be able to have my studio, and I live at home. I don't really have to worry about paying rent and bills, and I feel really grateful for that. So my day-to-day has pretty much been similar, and I do get a lot of studio time. But when it really started affecting like BC here, I did have a show that got postponed, and so like I had worked for months and months on the show, and then it got canceled the day before install. So after that, I was like, I didn't really know what to do next, just because like I've always, I mean, I haven't been a full-time artist for a full year yet, but like since then I've just been working project to project, right? So like working towards an exhibition, what's the next thing that's coming up? So it was like, I didn't really know what to do with nothing concrete coming up. I didn't know what to do with my pieces that were for the show, like felt like a really wrong time to sell them and like to market myself. So there was like definitely a lull, like, oh, I'm not sure like how to get going again. But another difference is that I was making a lot of ceramic work for that show. And obviously I can't access the pottery studio in Maple Ridge because it's been closed. And I've missed it so much that I ended up just making a at-home pottery studio. So I bought myself a wheel. I contacted a local potter around here to use her kiln, because kilns are super expensive. And yeah, so I've been able to start doing pottery for the last 2 weeks. So that's been really exciting.
That's great. For anyone who wasn't watching last week, Emily was the Quiem Choi Exhibition Scholarship recipient last year for PoMoArts and had a solo exhibition here in the summer of 2019. So moving on to the next question. And we were talking about silver linings. And so I think we will maybe start talking with Bridget this time. We'll change it up. Whoop, so Bridget, I'm trying to unmute you. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so Bridget, a silver lining for many has been a surge in content and access to online content for webinars, conferences, online tours of world-renowned galleries, and so on. Things we might not have had time to do as an in-person trip or activity. Are you doing any of these online activities, or are you sticking pretty strong to the studio and your garden?
Well, I have been able to find a kind of balance, which has been nice for once, to be able to actually read and follow some of the newsletters that I subscribe to in email, but I usually find my email is so swamped that I maybe open it for a second and think I don't have time for that. I'll look at it later and I flag it. And so I've actually been able to read things and not just flag them and then 2 years down the road erase them because I never had time to read them. So that's been lovely. And yeah, just being able to balance that time a bit better in the studio. I also, Co-Adorn is an art jewelry society based in Halifax, and they have Zoom meetings frequently on a Friday. So I've done a few of those, and it's wonderful to be connected with different groups that I wouldn't ever, like, I've never been to Halifax. It's so wonderful to be able to meet with people all across Canada who are in the same field and who are trying all kinds of different ways of changing their businesses or changing the way that they work. And that's been really lovely.
Thank you. Shannon, I'll put you next.
Okay.
Whoop, no, I muted you instead of unmuting you. Hold on here. There we go. What do you find you've been doing, having any interactions online, enjoying anything, or are you very busy? If you have an 8-year-old daughter, then I imagine you're doing a lot of homeschooling.
Yeah, and I would say all the online stuff that she's having to do and the Zoom meetings and I'm pretty much done after that. And I've never been somebody who's been able to be kind of on the internet very much anyway. So I would say not really anything on that front.
Okay. And we know that Monique has been working like mad in the studio. So Monique, have you been able to do any online activities, or are you sticking pretty much to doing your artwork?
Pretty much to doing my artwork. I'm the type of artist that doesn't actually gain a lot of inspiration from going to major galleries. Not that I don't enjoy them, I enjoy them, but most of my inspiration comes from conversations with people. That's my major focus, and reading and that kind of thing. But because my art career is mostly focused on public galleries, it's my primary income, so I get paid artist fees to exhibit. I kind of switched gears a bit because all my exhibitions came home. So my studio and my sales, my studio is so crowded. So I decided, okay, some of the pieces I know that aren't going to go to an exhibition ever, I might try to sell these. So, you know, it's a small silver lining, but it feels really weird for me because I am not about the sales at all. I make art to tell the stories, to impact people. I do not make art to sell. That is not who I am. So I had to switch gears a bit, which was, whoa. And it's mostly I had to switch gears because I was leaping over my own work. And when there's too much work in my home, I feel like I can't create, that there's no space to make art. So it's been a silver lining to sell stuff, but it also feels kind of weird. It's somewhere I've never been before. So I actually made a post like, DM me for price. Ugh, it felt really good.
So then you've kind of led into the next question when you're talking about so much of your artwork coming home because of exhibitions being canceled and projects and things like that. So with all the talk of reopening, is it too early to ask if any of those postponed projects, exhibitions, events will be, have they been rescheduled yet?
Well, a few have been rescheduled, but it's interesting. I have an exhibition coming up in the Yukon sponsored by the Canada Council of the Arts that I don't know about. That's in August. Next year, I have Australia, Korea, Newfoundland, and Nova Scotia with solo exhibitions that are kind of up in the air. So that it creates an interesting energy in my studio because again, I create work to create work. I don't create work for a deadline. I don't create work for just an exhibition. I will create an entire body of work and then put out proposals. So I don't have that kind of deadline panic that might happen. But a gallery here is doing an interesting thing. My Dandelions exhibition of 2000 was canceled, but she decided to put plinths in their city with glass covers and a QR code to link to the whole idea of my exhibition as well as the song I wrote about dandelions. It's going to all link together in their city as kind of like, oh yeah, her thing was canceled, but she's coming later. We don't know when she's coming, but she's coming later. And so that's kind of exciting. And they also, because of that, a silver lining is that they were able to combine my songwriting with the exhibition and put it on the street where the average person can see it. Because I'm a true believer in the accidental art happenings and not only having art in formal galleries. I seek out places to put my art that aren't standard so that someone who's not comfortable in an art gallery goes to an art gallery, or goes to, by chance, by it and goes, oh wow, I saw art. And so that's kind of, I'm very up in the air, but I'm flexible. So here I am, doing my thing.
So then what about traveling? Because you do a lot of traveling for your exhibitions. Is this going to hamper that at all?
We don't know a lot about that yet. Yukon, I'm hoping I get to go because my exhibition in the Yukon is a beehive that takes up a gallery that's 1,200 square feet. And it's really, really big and people can walk through it and it has sound and smell. So without me going there, no gallery assistant or curator wants to hang that thing. Trust me. It's 200 times up and down the ladder for 2 people. So 400 times up and down the ladder. So I'm hoping I get to go to do the install, but I don't know. And right now I think I have, my husband's filming me, I think I have 9 canceled flights or something like that. I have 9 flight credits right now. So, and somebody that was going to assist me on an install also has a flight credit. So I am not sure how it's all going to play out. Australia is a dual exhibition of my bees and my dandelions, which is very exciting. But it's next summer, so we'll see.
Hopefully by next summer, things will be getting back to normal, a little bit more back to normal.
I hope so.
Yes. I'm going to move on to Emily now. And Emily, you had mentioned that you had an exhibition canceled as well. Was it postponed, or are you able to, will they mount that show again?
Yeah, so it is postponed for 2021. I don't know when at all. I don't know if it'll be the same work. I can't imagine it will be, because that's a year away. I'm sure I'll want to make different work or just kind of be at a different stage of what I want to be making and terms of maybe I'll be doing more ceramic. So I don't really know. I don't have any details. I don't even know when they're reopening. It was at the Silk Purse Gallery in West Van. So, but it is postponed, so that's good.
And you won't be affected by travel restrictions going to that one?
No, no, I won't.
Okay, so Bridget, I know that you had a huge exhibition schedule this year as well. And I'm wondering, have they started to reschedule any of these shows? Were they postponed? Are they hybrid, online and in-person plans?
Well, Crafted Vancouver, which I would have had a number of exhibitions within that got canceled. So everybody stay tuned for next May, because it's gonna be great. The Castaways exhibition, which is at the Robert Bateman Center in Victoria, they were able to go online. So we had the opening a week before closure and our lockdown, and they were able within a couple of weeks to get it. There's a virtual gallery tour that people can go, and it's really quite interesting because they also had us do a minute of speaking about your work. And so while they pan over the work, that you can actually hear the artist speaking about their work, which I think is lovely, because I really like to hear the inflection in people in their voices and the way that they speak about their work. It helps to really describe it. And then there's Paysage de l'Intime, which is a beautiful exhibition. It's a traveling, both of the next two are traveling exhibitions. And although they've been canceled in some cities, Paysage will be actually starting in June. So June 6th in Quebec City at Gallery Lewis. And I think because there was all of her other exhibitions that she had planned are not a go-ahead, she's going to actually keep it throughout the summer, because they won't have an opening or potentially a closing. So they'll just make it so that people can come and see it. And then it should hopefully be going to Paris in October. So we'll see. And then Placement is another exhibition, which is coming to Vancouver. It was supposed to have gone to 2 different locations in Seoul, Korea, but that got canceled. But I think hopefully it's good. It's been postponed until September, and Vancouver will have it in August at the Visual Space Gallery. So again, there may not be an opening, but people will be able to go, and there's enough room, I think, to have a nice circulation of people. So some things are still go-aheads, which is really nice.
Have your travel plans been affected at all?
Well, I wasn't sure if I was going to be going. I really wanted to go to the Paris show, but I wasn't convinced I'd be able to swing it. And then a friend of I had been talking about a show that we were going to be having during the Crafted Vancouver. We were going to do it Jewelry Week in New York City. And so that will likely happen here in Vancouver, potentially in August. And I don't think we'll be traveling it. Who knows? You never know. But let's do one show and then we'll figure that out. But I'm not sure if Jewelry Week would even happen, because that's in October, I think, or November. We'll see. Yeah. So
right now we are getting close to the end. So what I thought I would do is give each of you a chance to, if there's anything in particular you want to talk about any of the pieces that you have in the show. So the first person I thought I would start with is Monique. Would you like to speak to any of the work that you have in the show that you haven't spoken about yet?
Sure, because I went and got this one out of storage. I got the wrong one out because my storage is crazy. These are lithographs from 1886, and my friend found them at a sale and bought them. And they were in an old suitcase. And so they have kind of weathered edges and things. And this one is called Pandora's Box. And we all know that in the bottom of Pandora's box is hope. And so I silk screened pop bottles over top of that because I hope that we come up with a way to question new things that come in our world and decide what the end life is of something. That's my hope. And I also hope that we find a way to deal with the plastic. And I've done a whole series of pieces with old lithographs. These are, of course, reproductions of something else that were made lithographs in 1886. So it's kind of a complicated thing. But I think the meaning is quite important there with Pandora's Box.
Thank you. Shannon, would you like to speak to any of your pieces? You had several in the exhibition. Oh, trying to get you unmuted here. Maybe we're both doing it. Okay. Maybe, can you unmute?
I think I'm unmuted. There we go.
Good.
Okay.
There we go.
It's kind of hard for me to show this, but this piece is in the exhibition. This is the piece that's on Alexandra Morton. So she is somebody, she's a biologist and an activist. She's been fighting for wild salmon, to protect wild salmon in BC for a number of years. And she was one of the people that I wanted to profile. I kind of did a series of works that I called We Could Be Heroes. And the idea is that it's really sort of everyday people who are working very hard, I think, on different issues to make a difference, who I think sometimes get overlooked, or they don't get the kind of attention that, you know, we give celebrities. And for me, she is one of those personal heroes that I really wanted to profile. So this was a piece I did that's colored pencil and also ink. Yeah, it sort of shows her in the midst of the sea with the salmon that she spends so much time fighting for.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Emily now and see if she wanted to speak to any of her artwork that was in the show.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna flip you around here. So I'll just show you these two that are on the wall. I think it's called, this one's They Searched, and then this one is For What They Had in Each Other. It's about actually me and my sister, like it's just a story about me and my sister living apart from each other. So she's in Alberta and I'm in BC, and we're always kind of connected but apart. So, you know, we're kind of walking towards each other but not together. And in all my pieces, I do little florals that kind of mean something to me. So I always add the thistles in that represent strength and resilience. And as well as like our family's from Scotland too. And they're just kind of cloaked in these designs as well. But I think it speaks to what's going on right now, especially being disconnected, because, you know, I haven't been able to see my sister in a long time because, you know, I usually see her once a month, and she just has a new baby and he's just a year, just over a year. And it's really hard to be away from him. So I think that connection with technology and being able to FaceTime has been really nice. I'm really grateful for it, but I really want to see my sister soon. So yeah, just want to talk about that one.
Well, I think we're all hoping that some of these things will be allowed to do a little bit of traveling this summer within Canada.
Yeah.
So Bridget, I'm going to move on to you then, and wonder if there were any of the, anything that you wanted to speak about from the show. I know you have so much artwork, and you only had a limited amount available to this exhibition, but did you want to speak to it?
So this one, it's I can go closer. So this is from the Strange Mineral series, and it's a brooch. And this whole series is really about all the scraps that I save. So after 10 years of creating all kinds of different work with and different techniques with plastics, I actually save almost everything. So it's sort of this use the whole animal type of mentality. So I'll end up with all of these scraps and figure out how I can reuse those. So some of them are fused and some of them are embedded in resin. And this one's called Blue Pond, but it's also in the shape of a metal. So it's sort of like, you know, the brooch have a metal, and it's a little bit tongue in cheek of where we've gotten to with our plastic consumption, you know, have a metal, but also for those who are actually really trying and trying to rework with materials, have a metal. And there's a little funny face on the back, a little winky face.
Thanks, Bridget. I'm going to put the screen back to everyone now because it was so nice to be able to have all of you here. Monique is in Saskatchewan, and the rest of you are all on the Lower Mainland. But it just has been a real pleasure to have you all in Igniting Hope. And so at this point, I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, but please hang on, and I'd love to chat with you after we've closed off. So I'm just going to share the screen, and I will say thank you to everyone who has watched this evening. We appreciate you coming to see the artist sessions, and we will be back again next week. No, actually, no, I'm sorry. We're taking next week off. We'll be back again on June 11th. So thank you very much and good night.